November 19th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The finale of Supernatural's 15th season has aired, as well as the finale of the whole TV show. Millions of viewers are tuning in to see how their beloved show will wrap up. Among them, some are tuning in out of sheer morbid curiosity to watch the whole shit show unfold. And boy, were they right. Instead of a fulfilling finale, we got this. Okay, I admit it, I am still pretty salty about the finale, as I'm sure most of you watching are. But as much as we would like to erase the finale from our collective consciousness, the question that I started asking myself after the show ended was Supernatural ever a good show, or did Tumblr trick us into thinking that it was a good show? Supernatural was one of the longest running shows on TV. It aired back in 2005. Ran for 15 seasons and 15 consecutive years, stacking up 327 episodes during its run. 2005 was a long time ago, and the social climate was a lot different than the one in 2021. The competition in 2005 was pretty big. At the same time when Supernatural was premiering, shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Grey's Anatomy, and the ever-beloved Netflix sweetheart The Office have already aired. The competition on TV was high, and a small and unknown show like Supernatural had an uncertain future. Originally created and written by Eric Kripke, Supernatural was envisioned as a modern western that evokes feelings of Americana and its encompassing nostalgia. A rich backstory filled with Western urban legends and two main characters who exhibit that small-town country boy bravado that has been romanticized in Hollywood for decades. Supernatural had big dreams, and back in 2005, it had to offer something different. Something that Buffy once offered to the older generations, but more testosterone-filled. This time, a story about a supernatural hunter who slays monsters and faces moral dilemmas of an average person had been vamped up. This time, Winchester Brothers are giving us the ultimate supernatural, vaguely homoerotic road trip across the United States. Fast cars, dingy motels, lots of alcohol, and easy women. When you think about it, these are the exact same things that Lana Del Rey sang about in the beginning of her career. It might be a coincidence, but I'd like to think it's not. All of this sounds promising. So why do I actually have beef with Supernatural? See, this did sound promising back in 2005, but we have to remember that times are a-changing, and that sometimes something that was supposedly good in the past might seem good today only because we view it through a lens of nostalgia. Nostalgia is a huge bitch, and in case of Supernatural, it certainly did her fair share of tainting my corrective lenses with her magic powers. The fact that I still was a teenager when I first started watching Supernatural didn't help either. Our perception changes over time, and in my case, it definitely did. When I compare 2011 me and 2021 me, we are the same person technically, but with vastly different perceptions of the world and, more importantly, different perceptions of the media that we consume. When I was 16, I might have overlooked all the problematic things about this show, not because I didn't care about them, but because I genuinely didn't know that they were problematic. With age comes wisdom, and at the same time skepticism and ability for critical thinking. The things that might have passed under my radar 10 years ago are painfully obvious now. For the purpose of making this video acceptably short, here are a couple of things that I find unacceptable in Supernatural. A trope that literally translates as God from the Machine might seem too literal for Supernatural, where Chuck, God, is the reoccurring character. But as much as this plot device is handy in theory, the overuse of God in the later seasons seems almost insulting to the main characters, who appear more like Sims-like creatures which God manipulates for his own enjoyment than human beings with free will, which was heavily emphasized seasons ago. The whole Team Free Will plot has been flushed down the toilet, and our main characters seem dumbed down, appearing more like side characters in God's meta-story than people who are actively in charge of their own destiny. After the show concluded its original 5-season run, Kripke and his fellow writers had to pick their brains out in order to continue making coherent storylines and mimic the continuity of the show. That has proven to be a tough task, because the first 5 seasons of the show have an overarching and complete storyline that cannot be matched to the later seasons that aired after the conclusion of the 5th one. And where do you go with your story after defeating Lucifer, the Prince of Darkness himself, the biggest evil in Judeo-Christian mythology? Well, you get these guys. Supernatural has had, over the course of its 15-year run, many secondary and reoccurring characters. Some of them were endearing, some of them were hated by the fans. But one thing that all these characters have in common is that the show doesn't think that they matter at all. The finale of the show proved that the only characters that the audiences are supposed to care about are Dean and Sam Winchester. While Castiel has been a recurring character since season 4, his untimely and plain ridiculous death erased him from the story completely, diminishing his impact on the story and serving as a plot device for Dean Winchester. As much as the showrunners didn't care about secondary characters, they really didn't give a shit about female secondary characters. While many amazing women have been included in the cast of the show, their story arcs never really mattered, serving only as a helping hand to our damsels in distress, Sam and Dean. Think about Jody, Ellen, and Joe Harvell, Meg, Ruby, and even Charlie. All enticing characters who gave us a glimpse of a different perspective in the testosterone-filled, no homo show with a great potential. The showrunners, of course, ended their arcs just in time when Sam and Dean needed a little push to drive the plot in a different direction. When season 1 started, we were convinced that Sam Winchester was the main protagonist of the show. As the story progressed, Sam and Dean find sort of an equal footing and had an equal amount of screen time and plot drive. That is, until the last couple of seasons. In the last couple of seasons, Sam completely lost his own story arc and acted as Dean's sidekick more than his brother. Just remember how many times it seemed like Sam is third-wheeling behind Dean and Castiel, who both had an elaborate storyline together, but without Sam. The last time that Sam Winchester had any semblance of his own plot was during season 8, when he was able to lead a domestic life while Dean was in purgatory, with an awesome vet called Amelia Richardson. It seems like Sam can only lead a normal life when Dean isn't around, which brings us to the next point. As the show progressed, the two brothers started acting more like conjoined twins, sometimes exercising their codependent relationship to a highly unhealthy degree. Not that their family life was ever healthy. They both grew up alongside their abusive father, which brought them together even more closely after John Winchester's passing. This makes having and maintaining outside relationships extremely hard, especially for Dean, who became passionately protective of his younger brother. It is a real shame that the showrunners decided to completely separate the two brothers in the finale. This way allowing Sam to have his normal white picket fence life instead of resolving their codependency by showing that they can actually form and maintain meaningful relationships with other characters. The finale managed to spice things up even more and take Sam's and Dean's codependent behavior to even bigger heights, introducing brotherly homoerotica when Dean was, well, impaled by a rusty nail. While we are talking about homoeroticism, this show is an absolute poster child for queer baiting. Alongside with Sherlock, Teen Wolf, and Merlin, Supernatural is notorious for being a show where the showrunners deliberately queerbait their audiences and, when confronted about it, brush it off as some kind of a gay joke. Queerbaiting started back in season 1, where the butt of the joke, no pun intended, was usually the more butch brother Dean, and it skyrocketed when Angel Castiel was introduced at the beginning of season 4. Castiel gripped Dean tight and raised him from perdition, and he did the same with the show's rating. This, of course, didn't come unnoticed by the show's creators, and so we got 12 seasons of deliberate, yet for larger audiences, very subtle bi-coding of Dean Winchester and less subtle hints that him and Castiel do indeed share a more profound bond than friendship. The most problematic part, of course, came in the 18th episode of the last season, aptly named Destielgate by the fandom, where Castiel finally expressed his true and undying romantic love for Dean, just to be yeeted into the empty approximately 36 seconds after the confession. Great job, guys! You went from queerbaiting to bare your gaze in less than 36 seconds. If that's not an accomplishment, I don't know what is. And the final point for this video. It's impressive how one small show managed to last for over 15 years, but after a disappointing finale, it is clear as day that the show wasn't in its prime for a long time. In fact, the show's prime ended with a perfect finale that was hard to top. Swan Song did everything right. It perfectly wrapped up 5 seasons of a thrilling, bigger-than-life itself storyline. It was well thought out and made sense as an ending. Swan Song was the finale that this fandom deserved, and nothing after ever came close to it. Thank you for sticking with me till the end of this video. If you enjoy this type of content, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel. I plan on covering more fandom-related topics, and I will definitely make more videos about Supernatural. I wish you all a pleasant rest of the day, and until next time, bye-bye.